What's up, everybody? Happy New Year's Eve and welcome to the Early Edge, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. It looks like the chat is buzzing. The Ricky Pearsall ladders, they really came through. Let's take a look at the recap screen before we bring in, we're going to go ahead and bring in the stars of the show, but here's the recap screen. Ricky Pearsall over 19.5 receiving yards. I said in my write-up on SportsLine, this is also a ladder play. And boy, oh boy, did that come in. 147 yards, I believe. Larry Hartstein, Brock Purdy over 17.5 rush yards. That doesn't come in. Mackenzie goes 1 for 2. Tom Casale goes 1 for 1 with Theo Weiss Jr. I do want to point out, Larry was 4-1 on SportsLine. The one pick he brought to the show, he lost. But again, 4-1 last night. So just keep that in mind, SportsLine members. You cashed in on the Maestro. All right. Well, you got a sneak peek at the stars of the show. Let's bring them in on this New Year's Eve. We got Mackenzie Brooks. We got Tom Casale. We got Buckets. I got a quick story for you. I was, I do the other show I do at Capital One Arena called By the Book. Tom, you've been on that show, of course, many, many times, including recently. So I'm walking in the studio area, and somebody who I don't see often, and I didn't know watches this show, he came up to me. His name is Adam, really nice guy. Really smart guy. He comes up to me and he says, "Hey, saw your show this morning." I didn't realize, Buckets, that he watched it. And the first thing out of his mouth after that, and I haven't told you this yet, "I love Buckets. Man, I love Buckets." He said it twice. And I was like, wow, that's the first thing he said. So my compliments to you. Everybody loves you. I love you. Thanks for being here. How you doing today, Buckets?
Well, good morning, everyone, and specifically good morning, Adam. If you're watching the show today, I would like to dedicate my one bet I have on the show to you. The last bet of 2024 for me is going to Adam, Sia. So I'm excited to talk about that later in the show.
Oh my God, the drama there. I forgot. This is our last bets of 2024.
It is very dramatic. Absolutely. Tom, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. I got a quick story for you, Sia. We're watching the game, this 49ers game, and I needed George Kittle to win $2,000 in my fantasy league. I ended up winning it, but it was touch and go for a while, and they kept throwing to Pearsall. And so my 9-year-old keeps saying, "Boy, that guy on the show really knows what he's talking about. The guy on the show." And finally I said, "Hey, my bet won at halftime." Well, yeah, my kids watch the show, and they were astonished by your Pearsall pick. They think you're the man now.
Well, I'm sorry it took them this long, Tom, but I will take the compliment whenever I can get it. I will say this. I had a very silly SGP that I didn't put out online or on SportsLine or in Discord because it was really silly. It would have paid me about $1,000. I needed a George Kittle touchdown. That was the only leg I missed, and Brock Purdy self-destructed down the stretch, and we didn't get there. Mackenzie Brooks, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. I actually watched the game last night with a few of my friends, and one of them was basically in the toilet bowl trying not to lose his fantasy league, and he had Purdy, and the other guy had the Niners kicker. Or no, the Lions kicker. So it literally came down to the wire. I think he won by 0.2, and then they pulled Purdy, and then it almost was better for him. So that was a very drama-filled day. We hit the Garendo receiving yard prop, put up stats like a wide receiver too, honestly. I think he had a 50 burger. So, we'll definitely take that.
All right. Jason Pogwis says, great game yesterday. That Gibbs run at the end, of course, cashed a nice plus 1,400 6-leg SGP for me. Good stuff, Jason. All right, well, let's get to some picks. We've got some college football on the show today. Of course, we've got some soccer with Buckets. I've got a golf pick. We've got the Century starting Thursday morning. On this show, you're going to start to see and hear a lot more golf picks from me on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and even Thursdays and Fridays leading up to and through these golf tournaments that are really going to get going basically starting now. All right, Tom, let's start, though, and we got some NBA too, some SportsLine picks, some college football. Let's start with some college basketball, Tom. You've got the floor.
Yeah, so I'm giving out San Jose State. I gave it out last night on the site at 5.5. It's around 3.5 right now. I put that up on my write-up that anything 3.5 or more take San Jose State. Now, this is a team I wasn't overly high on coming into the season, and at first it looked like I was right. They had some bad losses to Pacific and Western Illinois, but they've really turned things around lately. Their 2 losses since Thanksgiving have been close losses to New Mexico and Boise State. They're still undervalued in the market. Last game at home, they were getting 9.5 against Boise State. They led that game most of the way, lost by 2. Tonight, they play a Colorado State team that is nowhere near the Rams team that we're used to seeing in recent years. They lost a lot from last season. They're still trying to figure out lineups. So getting 5.5 at home, I thought that line, the opener was high. moved quickly to 4.5. Now it's settling at 3.5. So 3.5 or more, if you can get the Spartans, I think they can win this game outright. They've been a cash cow for us all year, and I think they lead us into 2025 with another win.
And this is a great example of why being a member of SportsLine is so important. Listen, Tom's recommending the 3.5 as well, but he put this out on SportsLine at 5.5. And if you're on SportsLine, if you have your alerts turned on, if you're just scanning SportsLine, you would have gotten the 5.5 when Tom put it out. So obviously a big difference between 5.5 and 3.5, but 3.5 still viable according to Tom's take here. But again, sportsline.com/join. If you're not already a member, you go to sportsline.com/join. You type in the promo code winners, and you get 60% off the annual plan. All right, well, that's a college basketball pick. Now we transition buckets back to you, back to Adam, for a soccer pick, your last soccer pick of 2024 on the early edge. What is it? No pressure.
You're going to get me emotional here, Sia. I just want to say before I get into this pick, I want to say thank you to Sia. Thank you to the producers behind the scenes. Thank you to Ken's. Thank you to Tom. And thank you to everyone in the chat for not only allowing me to be on this program, but putting up with my dumb ass on this program, because I know that sometimes I can be a bit much, but I will never change who I am. So get ready for much more in 2025. With that being said, let's end the year with a bang. We're going to the Australian A-League. This match is at 11 p.m. Eastern tonight, so we will be cashing this ticket as we go into the new year. It is Auckland FC versus Melbourne Victory. We're taking the classic. Both teams to score at -130. And I've seen people on Twitter say, Buckets, Auckland FC has never conceded a single goal in club history to Melbourne Victory. It has never happened in the history of this club, to which I say this club was founded about 8 months ago. This is their first season, and these teams have never played. So stop trying these scare tactics to get me off this bet. I absolutely love this wager. Auckland has one of the best offenses in all of Australia. Top of the table, looking really, really good, but in their past few games, a little defensively lackluster. Melbourne Victory, not the best team by any means, but they're the third best team, and they're good enough to get a goal here. Let's get both teams to score. Let's get both teams to score to cash, Sia, and go into the 2025 with more cash tickets. A little messy there at the end.
You said this was the Australian A-League, correct?
Correct.
Fun fact, my sister lives in Melbourne, Australia, and my mom is out there visiting her. So shout out. We're giving shout outs to Adam. May as well give out shout outs to Zoe and Lillian and George and the family out in Australia. All right, how about some SportsLine picks? I'm seeing a lot of picks in the chat, by the way, so I do want to get to some of those. Michigan money line plus 570. That's interesting. The Bama line kind of exploding from 14 yesterday to 16.5 now. We might get into a little bit of why in a little bit. But Chris Middleton over 13.5 points from Jacob Crater. That's interesting because I think there are some props on SportsLine from one prop bet guy that I think might be focused on Chris Middleton. But speaking of him and speaking of SportsLine picks, let's start with college football. Washington plus 1.5 versus Louisville. That is courtesy of Zach Simony. That line has shifted a little bit. I think Washington might be a slight favorite now. You can get it at Pick'em, I think, at around -110 each way. So I think you're okay there still. But again, SportsLine members got Washington plus 1.5 versus Louisville. That's from Zach. And prop bet guy. Our latest and greatest, Norman Powell, over 23.5 points. That is from Prop Bet Guy. But again, if you're a SportsLine member, I do believe I saw a Chris Middleton prop from him as well. If you want to make any of those picks or any of the picks you're about to hear from Mackenzie Brooks or from me, go to BetMGM. New BetMGM customers can sign up today and get up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Just place your first wager of at least $10, and you will receive up to $1,500 instantly if your bet loses with bonus code EDGE. That's bonus code EDGE, EDGE. All right, we got to get to some more picks. We got a few more to go, but we're going to wait because we got to hear a message from our partners.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
Highlights and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
Sure. What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
We've got people in the chat. Let's see. It's Brian M., Tom, supporting your San Jose State pick. So you love to see that. And we've got other picks. Paul L., who's one of the funnier guys in the chat, rivaling Jeff Stenberg. He says, the Lions kicker was busy posing like he was about to be painted on the Titanic. That was a weird shot. Does everybody know what Paul L. is talking about? Mackenzie, you're nodding your head. Was that awkward or was it just me?
Awkward would be a good word for what was going on there. I don't know what what justifies what was going on there. I'm having a hard time figuring that one out.
And just the fact that the camera, Tom, was like on him for like a good, like felt like 15 to 20 seconds, even though I'm sure it was short. It was like slow motion. Like, why is the camera still on this guy? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought he was hurt, but maybe the 49ers kicker should have tried it. He's awful right now. He can't kick anything.
I feel bad for Jake Moody because he is probably a bad kicker, but San Francisco keeps setting him up with like 57 and 58 yarders. And it's like, yeah, people are, even in this day and age of kicking, especially outside, people are going to miss those picks. Hey, let me ask you, Tom and Mackenzie, this line, Tom, I'll start with you, and you might be just speculating here, but this line jumping from 14 to 16.5, this game, of course, Michigan-Bama is today. Can you explain that line movement?
Yeah, so you know what bowl games have kind of turned into to me is almost like NFL draft props. Because when NFL draft, you're going off rumor. It's one of the only times in betting that lines are moving off rumors and people are betting off rumors. And that's kind of how the bowl season is now, because you hear, okay, this guy might play or this guy might not play. And we saw that with the Syracuse game, right? We saw that line go up to 17. And now we're seeing that with Bama, because I think a lot of their guys are projected to play today against Michigan, and some of the Michigan guys are sitting out. So I think sometimes these lines, they overinflate and they move too much based on a little bit of information. And I think that's what we're seeing here. I mean, here's the thing. If you liked Alabama, you should have a better line than this. That I'm just being like there was way better lines available, and not for a day. For weeks, there was better lines available. So that would be my point, that try to get ahead of these moves, because now you're just buying into an awful price.
Yeah, fair enough. Mackenzie, any follow-up to that, or did he just encapsulate all of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely tough. It's just tough to bet on now, like the transfer portal and everything. I mean, it's really, you have to do your homework big time, or try to, stay in touch with the rumors or what's true, what's not true, be in touch on Twitter. If you have the time for that, all power to you, but it's definitely a dangerous game sometimes trying to figure out these bowl games.
Well, what's interesting, go ahead, Buckets.
I just got a question about cup games, if that's okay, or bowl games. Sorry. I know in the soccer world, cup games in the soccer world are very difficult to bet, because we talk about how some teams don't care, some players don't want to be there. Is that very similar in college football then? It's kind of just a toss-up of who's going to try?
Except for those teams that are in the actual playoff, because there are select teams that are the good teams that are in the playoff that actually have something to shoot for, like a Super Bowl or what have you, or whatever the soccer equivalent is. I probably should know that. I'm sorry, World Cup. Anyway, but there are other bowl games that are really merely exhibitions. I mean, right, Tom? Right, Mackenzie?
Yeah. The military teams play hard. But, I think what Buckets brings up a good point. It's almost like, everybody thought Colorado was a lock because those guys were playing. And even the coach at halftime said, well, we don't want to play football. We're not here to play football. So they just didn't care. Yeah, Sanders and Hunter played, but that team wanted nothing to do with that game. And BYU came out with their hair on fire. So you're trying to guess who's going to be motivated, who isn't. That's always been the case for bowl games. But now today, like Mackenzie was saying, you're almost trying to read between the lines on the information and who's playing and the nil stuff. It's really tough.
Yeah, it's kind of the Dan Campbell situation from last night. Of course, we all should have predicted Dan Campbell going full throttle, but you never know when stuff is not necessarily on the line. However, Mackenzie, we do have the college football quarterfinals with a lot on the line. So this is a lot more predictable. We actually know who's playing. So talk to me about your two picks in college football.
Yeah, we're going to that game tonight, Penn State, Boise State here. And I hate to say this because I am rooting for competitive games, maybe not Georgia. I'd like to see them beat Notre Dame pretty comfortably. But other than that, I do love to see these games be competitive. I just have a hard time seeing Boise State covering this game here with the way Penn State has been playing. Now, I say it all the time, like Penn State isn't the prettiest, most explosive, fun team. And I think that's why people like to see or bet on other teams to cover against them. But their defense is so phenomenal. Like, you will not win the turnover battle. All of their stats are prettier than you would think they are. And I just think Boise State, the only way they can be successful here is trying to throw on early downs. Like, they know exactly what the one-dimensional offense would be with Genty. I do think Boise State probably saved a lot of game script in the regular season playing their Mountain West competition and saving it for this game. I just still think it's a one-dimensional offense that will have a very hard time against this Penn State defense. We saw Kevin Jennings for SMU have a really hard time keeping the ball on basically his offense on the field with all the turnovers and interceptions. I don't think it'll be that bad, but I do think this will be an uncomfortable situation for their quarterback. We have Ashton Genty for only 130 yards in our SportsLine model, which just it's not going to be enough, I don't think, if he's really all they have to go to. So I think Penn State will cover this game. We make it a 16-point win for them. And then I want to isolate one of their players here with a little player prop. Harrison Wallace here, the third, I believe he is, his prop line. Now, I will be the first to admit this makes too much sense, but I'm having a hard time understanding why this wouldn't hit. His receiving yard line's 41.5. He has gone over this in his last 10 games. I would say that louder for the people in the back. He has gone over this number the past 10 games. He's very much part of the offense. 4 receptions in his past couple of games as well. Like, Boise State's pass rush is phenomenal. Their secondary is super, super vulnerable. So I'm out of answers as why this wouldn't hit. I just think maybe it's an overlooked line, but I think he should go soaring over this.
Okay, so there is a bit of an elephant in the room here, and some people, I think Mark Buckholtz in the chat and others have pointed this out. Tom, you it's not an official play on this show, but it does seem that people have noticed that you've been on the Boise State side. So we have contrarian picks on this show all the time. By contrarian, I mean up against somebody else that's on the show. Make the argument for Boise State so people can appreciate both sides.
Yeah, well, first, a lot of people that I respect, like Mackenzie, are on Penn State today. So, I'll say that. The reason I took Boise State early is only because I thought, to me, the line was just a little bit off. And I thought it was a little bit of an overreaction. So I had Penn State as a sizable favorite at about 7.5, 8 points. So it wasn't like I had him as a 4-point favorite. But I actually thought this line was going to come down. And it didn't. I put it in at 11, and it's been there. It's gone up to 11.5. The thing that Mackenzie said, though, to me, is going to be how the game is decided. She mentioned Boise State's good pass rush. That's been kind of where I've been at with if they can get to Drew Allar and make him uncomfortable, I think they can ugly this game up and make it a lower scoring, 24-16 kind of game and stay in it for a while. But she's right. If they don't get to them, then they're going to be in trouble because they can make plays down the field. But I guess I just don't – I've always had trouble trusting Allar. And I'll tell you, the only other thing that has me just a little bit I think a lot of people are looking at what Penn State did against Oregon's defense. Turn on the TV tomorrow and watch what Ohio State does to that defense. They're hanging for fun. So, but no, there's a lot of people who like Penn State today, so I'm in the minority. I just thought the line was a little bit high based on I'm probably, again, I'm in the minority. I actually have Boise State rated a little higher than SMU. So SMU was 8.5 at Penn State, and now Boise is 11 on a neutral field. So for me, it was just about the number.
Can I just sneak in another pick from you then? Because you just mentioned Ohio State. Are we attacking them via team total, or do we think they're winning outright as 2.5-point favorites? I think it's still 2.5 against Oregon.
I put the over up on the site, 55.5. I think that game's going to be, I think if Ohio State comes with their Tennessee game plan, I think they win. If Ryan Day brings the Michigan game plan, then I think not only do they lose, but Ryan Day is going to be coaching Ball State next year.
Very good stuff. Kenz, before I give out my pick, any reaction, or did you all just both sum it up?
No, yeah, I agree with him. I think tomorrow's games are going to be awesome. I like Oregon money line just because you're getting the quote unquote #1 team in the country for plus money. It just feels like a little bit of a don't overthink this one. I do absolutely think this could be a shootout, as Tom was saying. I mean, it will come down to who is the better quarterback just in this game specifically. I do think Dylan Gabriel will just have less turnovers, honestly, than Will Howard. I could see Will Howard being a little bit of a turnover machine. So I like the shootout scenario, but I just think Oregon takes it.
Okay. And I just want to say Mackenzie makes a great point, and it's why I'm not on Ohio State and why I'm on Boise State. But it's something we have to monitor because this is the first expanded playoffs. I think you're getting more value in the second round against the teams that won in the first round, because I have that game around pick'em, and I think everybody saw Ohio State go in and destroy Tennessee at home, and they're all Ohio State. But I kind of agree with her. Well, I like Ohio State to win in a toss-up game. The value in the line to me is with Oregon. I don't think Ohio State should be 2.5-point favorite.
Look at Buckets.
I'll be right back. Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay, fair enough. He's probably going to put on an Ohio State jersey or something. He's mad. He's big mad. Interesting, by the way, if you're listening to the podcast, thank you for listening. But I just want everybody to know, if you're listening and you're not watching us live on YouTube or watching the replay, Tom's complete take on the over was just put up by Debo, who's producing today. And you can read that on YouTube. You can read, if you're not a SportsLine member for some reason, you can kind of read what some of these quick picks look like and what the analysis looks like from Tom Casale. And there he is. There's Buckets with, is that a brand new purchase, Buckets? The Ohio State jacket? It looks pretty good.
Brand new leather jacket I got from an estate sale for $5 here in Columbus. So
he's rocking the full zip up like Sia all the way up.
Yeah, if I could go up to here, it'd be the full Sia. I'm only here right now, but I'll try to hit it.
Beautiful. Well, let me do the full Sia right now and give out my pick. You look like very Michael Jackson-esque. He's a singer, by the way, but performer, artist. Anyway, it's not important. We'll teach you about Michael Jackson later. The Century. I'm going golfing. We're going top Canadian. A nationality prop. Matchups aren't out yet. So on tomorrow's show, and people were asking, we are doing a show tomorrow where we'll talk more golf, college football, NBA, you name it, whatever's on the slate. We will be discussing it tomorrow. I'm going top Canadian, Taylor Pendrith. I'll keep this short and sweet. There are 4 Canadians competing at the Century: Adam Hadwin, Nick Taylor, and Corey Connors. And Taylor Pendrith is the second of those 2. The favorite is Corey Connors. And 2 things here. One is I think Corey Connors and Taylor Pendrith are just much better suited for this course than the other 2 I mentioned, in Nick Taylor, Adam Hadwin. But more importantly, plus 225 versus like a plus 120 from Corey Connors. I think those numbers should be way closer. And the main reason for that is Taylor Pendrith is the way better putter, the way better scorer, the way better birdie maker. Corey Connors is a very good golfer. The ball striking is great. All of those things, that's not going to matter as much here. What matters here is short game and specifically putting and making birdies. And Taylor Pendrith is the best of this group at doing just that. So plus 225 at a number that I think honestly should be like plus 150. I see tremendous value there. Again, plus 225. Maybe you want to put a half a unit on this because of the price. It's up to you. I'm not going to tell you how to bet. I may not put a full unit on this because of the great price I'm getting. I just want everybody to know that. All right, Buckets, before we get out of here and we get to the recap screen, any soccer bets or reaction to the chat that you need to comment on?
No soccer bets or reaction because this is one of the slowest footy days of the year. But what I will say is Ohio State minus 6.5 at plus 170. See ya.
Wow. Okay. You know what? You know what's really funny is that's definitely coming in, because anytime Buckets gives out a football bet, it just comes in for some reason. So apologies. Nice jacket. And Mackenzie, anything we need to cover in the chat before we get out of here?
No, I mean, I saw a few NBA questions and college basketball questions. To be honest, NBA is frustrating me right now. Like last night, you just get gypped by some late scratches, game time decisions or people you didn't even think were questionable. So a little frustrated with NBA regular season right now, taking a quick break there. Haven't really dove into college basketball just quite yet. Once college football playoffs are done, I will be a lot more resourceful here.
Certainly. And we know we have Tom Casale on SportsLine for a lot more college basketball. And in the NBA, we got prop stars and prop bet guys. So again, if you're a member of SportsLine, obviously the picks you hear on this show on the Early Edge are like, I'm just doing ballparking it here. 2% of the picks you get on SportsLine in terms of quantity. So go check out, if you're looking for NBA or college basketball or any other sport, you can just check out SportsLine, sportsline.com/join, promo code winners. All right, let's get to the recap screen and get out of here. Again, we'll be here on New Year's Day talking anything you want to talk about, specifically the Wednesday, New Year's Day slate. Century, top Canadian. This doesn't start till Thursday morning. It's out in Hawaii, so really early Thursday morning, like 5 in the morning, I believe. So get these bets in before Wednesday night. Taylor Pendrith, top Canadian, plus 225. Tom Casale, San Jose State, plus 5.5 versus Colorado State. That was up at SportsLine at plus 5.5. He said he'd play it as low as plus 3.5, where it lays right now. SportsLine picks Washington plus 1.5 versus Louisville, and Norman Powell over 23.5 points. Mackenzie Brooks, Penn State minus 11 versus Boise State. Harrison Wallace over 41.5 receiving yards, and Buckets. Australian A-League, Auckland versus Melbourne victory. both teams to score -130. Big apologies for not getting to more of your picks in the chat. I'll make sure I do that a little bit better job of that tomorrow, but we just had so much to talk about today. So ladies and gentlemen, have a great New Year's Eve. Stay safe. Obviously, have a positive day, have a positive mindset heading into the new year. We'll see you here tomorrow. But for now, on behalf of Debo on the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s, Mackenzie Brooks, Tom Casale, Buckets, Adam, my mom out in Australia, and all of you in the chat, Mark Buckholz, KC3, Brad Morris, Big Cheesy, Rashawn Jones, Scott Blakely, everybody, thanks for your participation. Kylie, it's Jeff Stenberg. It's been a great year, and we're going to have another great year coming up. We appreciate you all sticking with us and being with us every single morning. We'll do it again tomorrow. I'm the Counselor of Cash. This is the Early Edge. Have a great New Year's Eve. Again, stay safe, stay smart. We'll see you tomorrow on the Early Edge. We rest our case.